Jon Landau, producer of Avatar, Titanic, and more importantly, father of Jamie and Jody. And I'm partnered with Jim Cameron at Lightstorm Entertainment. What you can expect to see from the next Avatars is continuing the story of Jake and Neytiri, going to explore new places on Pandora, keeping in mind why the first movie worked, and delivering that on a new scale, on a different scale, really even larger than the first film. I think the key when you approach your job is not to let the job change, to keep in mind the foundation that you've built your career on. And when we look at our movies, in each one we want a new challenge, but we want to keep in mind the basic principles of why movies work. Movies work because of the characters that we put up on the screen. You know, I tell people that movies aren't about the world, the environments, they're about the close-ups. And for us, as to start out as producers, it all starts with a script. And you know, here we're making a sequel to the highest grossing movie of all time, actually 3 sequels. What we have to do is we have to deliver 3 movies, 3 individual movies that play as individual movies that live up to the expectations that the first Avatar created. Fortunately, I'm working with James Cameron. And Jim has done 2 sequels in his career. And I would argue that both times he at least lived up to, if not exceeded, what the first movies delivered on those sequels. When we were making Avatar, people would say, are you planning a sequel? And we'd say, well, we're going to let the people decide that when we see how the movie does. Well, the movie did well enough that we decided, yes, we want to do sequels. Why? Because there are more stories to tell. There are more stories that we want to convey to the audience. The timing of these movies really comes out of the need to take the time to develop the stories. And that's what we've been doing now. We've been working with 3 great teams of writers, and Jim is writing on each of the sequels. We have Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver, who are Planet of the Apes, and you know, we have shown some clips here today at FMX, which is exciting. We have Shane Salerno and Josh Friedman, each writing one of the sequels with Jim. And the writing process is the most critical step on any movie. And oftentimes, it's a process that gets overlooked because people are there to make a release date and not to make the best movie. So we didn't want to sort of get into a production schedule and have plans until we really knew where the stories were. We have a great art department on now. We're working on designs with Ben Proctor and Dylan Cole, our internal production designers. We're working with Richard Taylor at Weta Workshop, John Rosengrantz at Legacy Effects. And the world they're designing, the creatures they're designing, it's really exciting to see where else these movies can go. So we want that foundation behind us before we launch into production. From a timing standpoint of the release of the movies, you know, we really see this as a saga that we're going to convey in the next 3 movies. Each movie will complete itself, and it'll be its movie unto itself. But to really create the feeling of a saga and to feel at the end of a journey when we complete the 3 movies, we wanted to release them 1 year apart. And that's what we're looking to do. The way we look at technology is that we are the ones who have to drive the technology to allow us to tell the stories we want to tell. We don't come up with a story because the technology exists. It's quite the contrary. In fact, Avatar was written 15 years before we made the movie. And we waited until we felt that technology was at a point where we could be the impetus to drive it forward and to do the things we wanted to do. And when I talk about technological innovations on Avatar, a lot of people jump right to the 3D. That wasn't it at all. What was important to us was to be able to put up digital characters, computer-generated characters that could be engaging and emotive. And that was what was most important. That's what we had to wait to do. And when we saw the landscape of what people were doing on films like the first Lord of the Rings, we felt that it was close enough there that we could push it. Then we looked at how do we create a paradigm of production where Jim Cameron can work with actors with the same intimacy that he would work with Kate and Leo on Titanic, and how could we give him the visual tools where he could actually see the world that these actors were supposed to be in. And that's how we pushed the forefront of virtual production. where we were able to go out there, work with actors in a performance capture volume, capture their performances, but at the same time have a virtual lens that let Jim see the world that they were in, create his shots, but also work with the same intimacy with the actors. The way we approached the risk of Avatar was we asked 20th Century Fox to support us for a year of R&D, where we went out and really explored the potential and the possibilities of virtual production. During that time, we created a 35-second prototype of a scene from the movie to prove to ourselves that it could work and that the process could work. While we were thinking about the 3D of the movie, we felt that if we could get onto 100 screens, that it would justify making the movie in 3D. We didn't know that 3D would become the juggernaut that it became for the release of the movie. And that's just a benefit where, I think we have a responsibility in the industry to find ways to drive people out of their homes and into the theaters, and we have to deliver them movies that work on a scale and a scope. And when I say a scale, I'm also talking about an emotional scale. And a scope that justifies them coming out of the house. But the theater owners have a responsibility to create an environment that creates an experience that's worth the money we are asking people to pay when they come out of the house. 3D is one of those elements that I believe makes it worth it. I think we're still at the fledgling stage of 3D and digital projection, and I see that the future, it's not a revolution, it's an evolution. And we need to let it take time. We need to make the glasses better. We need to find ways to maybe get rid of the glasses. We need to make the image brighter. We need to explore areas like high frame rate. These are all things that we're looking to do as we move forward into the sequels.